Good morning. Good morning. Be right with you guys. Right. Good morning, and happy Monday, crypto enthusiasts. Hopefully, you guys had a phenomenal weekend. Man, what a weekend it was! Just dump after dump. A lot of unexpected. We obviously had movement on Saturday, even going into Sunday for Ethereum, actually for the entire market altogether. But nevertheless, creating opportunities for us going into the month of February. We'll be checking that out all together. If you're new here, I'm Crypto Saint, where I'll be diving into charts live with you guys, taking live setups, doing a little bit of education with that at the same time. There is access to our Discord in the event that you want to have more private conversations or a little bit more cultured conversations. The link is posted inside of the chat there for you. Nevertheless, let's dive into some of these charts and let's go from there. Good morning. Good morning. God bless you too. Good morning, Pac-Man. Good morning, Venue. Hope you guys are doing well. So I'm going to start off here with the weekly because this is an idea that I was playing around last night inside the corner. And I mean, just basically looking at this, I'm looking at a potential inverse head and shoulders here for Ethereum. We tapped into a pretty significant support area. We can see this support that was derived over here that took us to a high here back in 2024. We've tapped into it once before, but then this is what created the head for us. Then we pulled right back up, found support, and then that's what took us to our all-time high. So in order for this to be valid, we do need to close above in this area. Can we get wicks down into 2060 inside of this area? Yes, we could. It could still create the right shoulder for us. So we need to be diligent about that. One thing that I am noticing here on the weekly is going to be that we do have a shaved head that sits inside this zone, coupled with some fair value gaps right above for us. I'll mark that off for us right now. So we can see right over here inside this area, we do have a shaved head that was created with a fair value gap. This is obviously the moves through the weekend right inside this area as we got down to the bottom of this area right over here. So we do have some momentum to move back up. We do have the opportunity for us to climb a little bit higher. So that's something that I'm going to be looking at. We did position ourselves yesterday inside of this area right around like 2176. Some of us got a little bit lower on that. We're also going to be looking at River. We have some good opportunities on River. Some of us are still sitting and maintaining that River position. And River had some good moves yesterday. So let's take a look, actually. Let's go over to River. We're going to go ahead and open this up like so. And I'm looking at River here on this 450. I have targets, honestly, I have targets for River that sit right around 46 up to 52. I'm looking at this liquidity pocket inside of this zone right over here. Now that's a bearish retest level that I'm looking at, we do have a liquidity pocket that goes all the way up to 65, to be honest with you. So if this thing decides to make another run up even higher, then we'll look at this from a 3-day. Actually, excuse me, we're going to look at this from a weekly. And let's go ahead and take some of these indicators off over here. And I was looking at this as just being a standard wave 1. And then this retracement here is a wave 2. Now I do have a 9 that's going to be printing right here inside this area, but I do have an 8 that printed below. So there's potential that it could be stopping inside of that zone, inside that area. So we got a 9 that's printing right now with the lead up phase that's printing a 1. So it's essentially showing us that this new trend that it has potential of creating is just getting started. From a indicator perspective, not much data that we can find on a weekly, but just looking at the technical aspects of it, you know, this being essentially where the origins was up to that all-time high, that creates that wave 1. This was a strong impulse, a good up thrust to the upside. So retracement was perfectly natural. It's something that had to occur in the event that this is going to go higher. Where wave 3 is going to be, that's going to be something that we really have to figure out, because we're going to go right back into price discovery. We'll look at the mathematics for that, for where potential wave 3 can go, or whether it be a 1.618 level, or whether that be a 2.618 level. We will measure that out as that develops. But for the time being, we're actually going to be looking at slightly lower time frames. I'm sitting on a 450 right now for me, and then I'll be managing also from like a 34 inside that area. Any questions that you guys may have when it comes to this stuff, feel free. This is going to be the place for you to ask that. Good morning, Sniper. What's going on, brother? Good morning, Jeff. Good morning. Good morning. God bless you guys. It's going to be a great week all together. Now, let me go back over to ETH real quick, because I think River's pretty much developed, especially if you guys took that last night. Some of you guys are still sitting in it. Some of you guys may have TP'd on it, so I'll look for potential levels to come back into. I'd say somewhere around this zone, which is like 16 and some change. I think that level would need to maintain itself, because we can see that we obviously had a push through, then we built some resistance here, then we had another push and then a retest. So somewhere inside of this area between like 16 down to 14, if that level can hold, then we have potential to move higher. If this leg wasn't done, then I'd be looking slightly lower, around like 9.8 inside of that area. But let's go back over to ETH. And we'll look at BTC as well here in a second as well too. I think this is creating good buying opportunities. For me, it's mainly, I'll be looking for ads. I'm not looking for any shorts here in this area. If price action decides to come back down lower, gets into, you know, let's just say 2060, it gets down to like 1800 or something of that nature, then I would just be simply sitting sideline waiting for those areas to mature and then taking those positions. I did have a scenario for us. This was a bearish view, and it was quite scary, not gonna lie. Let's take a look. Where did I put that? It was on a 3-day. Okay, so let's look at a 3-day. And we're going to zoom all the way out so we can look at this together. So where this trend line originated from, you can see where I have it marked off. You know, we hit an all-time high. There wasn't enough volume to keep pushing it up higher. We had some imbalances here inside this area at that time. It cleared those imbalances. That's what this move is. Then you had a throwdown. Then it kind of created this trend line where it kept on resisting inside of this zone. And we had another resistance here inside of this area. We broke out to the upside with a small little retest. So essentially this establishes that trend line for us. Now, if we just kind of go and follow where that trend was, we retested it there once, we retested it here again, and now there was another retest that just occurred not too long ago. if we're in a full-blown bear market like we've seen in 2022, in 2022, price action went all the way to like 4,800 and then had like an 82% drop in a span of, a little bit less than a year. And that's what brought us to those 3-digit ETH numbers. If we were to see the same thing, yes, we would be in the same 3-digit numbers. But one thing that I did wanted to add into this was I just took the entire structure from this swing point low as far as the origins, all the way to the swing high as far as all-time high that we had saw earlier in the year, or last year, and then just using those fib levels. So getting to fib levels, if we're going to go to fib levels, this would be the bear market lows that we're looking at, right? 0.236 sits right around 421, and then obviously gets a little bit deeper. There's really nothing there to catch it. This would essentially be like some type of black swan event that we're going to see. I don't see that, but I'm always going to give you guys the probabilities in the event that if it goes this way or it goes that way, what could we potentially be looking at altogether. So recovery levels look like this. And we're going to zoom in on that. So recovery, I'm looking at this saying, okay, well, potentially we have an ABC that sits inside this area. We do have a bullish order block that sits right inside this zone. And coupled with that, we do have a fair value gap that we could tap into. You can see where they overlap inside this area. Now these zones right over here, let's say 2035, down to 2023 inside these areas. Like if we saw a wick that came down into this area, it would still feed into the inverse head and shoulder inside that area. We're just catching wicks. It's if we start to see closes underneath this area on a 3-day going into a weekly, that it starts to become real concerning for us, that we have much lower targets that we're going to be looking at. I do believe there's going to be some type of short-term reprieve that we can be looking at. I'm looking at really 26-23 as being one of those areas for us, and that's going to be a real decision maker because it was previous support. We got a little push up into 3400s, and obviously we violated. We tried to defend that area, but you can see this big thrust down to the downside. So this tells us that there was a lot of individuals that were longing that area, trying to catch a quote unquote double bottom, and then institutional money or whales, or however you want to label them, they actually were shorting support. That's where you get that massive down thrust down to the downside. So this now becomes a key level for us to defend, or at least flip if we're going to have continuation to the upside. I will pair that with a butterfly view that I have from this perspective. And that, again, that feeds right into that same area that I was talking about before. We're going to take the fair value gaps off real quick. 2621, 2623, which essentially is wave X for us. That becomes one of the main decision levels as far as where price actually can go to, in the sense if we're going to have continuation up or if it's going to break down. So from a harmonic trading perspective, I usually like to look at wave X to give me confirmation that the pattern is going to hold. For continuation, I look for wave B to have acceptance and or a breakdown. So, this is going to be a reclaim for continuation. If we can reclaim this area, then we have potential to move a little bit higher into the 2700 benchmark, which essentially is wave B. Not that far off in the sense of price action goes, but nevertheless, it's going to be a key pivotal area for us to see momentum up to the upside. Wave C essentially is going to be the next heavier TP area, because we can see that there was heavy resistance inside that area, and we could see the opposite of what we saw when we got to this 26-23 area. Just like individuals were trying to long this area, and then we had a massive down thrust to the downside, we could see something like the opposite, meaning a lot of individuals start creating shorts in this area, and then we see a massive up thrust into this fair value gap. This fair value gap sits right around like 3,700 up to right around 3,800. And for me, on my side, hold on, you guys are having some lags with the stream. Let me check stats real quick. I keep running into that. Well, if the stream lags, continues to lag, I'll just restart. I don't know what's going on my side, but I'll restart if anything. As I was mentioning here, you know, if we get that up thrust to this area, we do have a fair value gap that sits over here, and we also have a 9 failure on a 987 point of view. So 9 failure means we had the 7, a 6 or 7 that was greater than the 8 or 9. So essentially showing us that price action will revisit that area, and that puts us somewhere around like 4,200 inside that benchmark, all still sitting inside of that bearish retest area. We'd have to break into all-time highs. So if that is the case, let's go back over to a 987, excuse me, a weekly, and you can see how the butterfly is set up inside there. It puts us inside of this zone. So 3,900 is one of the levels that I was looking at to see if we do get a retest or if we're going to break down into that area. Ultimately, I'm not looking for shorts here in this area. I'm looking for buying and longing opportunities. Hopefully the stream is picking back up for you guys. If it's not, like I said, I will restart on my side and try to start it over. Let's take a look at some liquidity. Yeah, see, we have all this liquidity to the upside over here, you know, all the way up to 2582, and that area that I was talking about, 2623, 2621, sits right inside this zone. So I could see a push up into that area, let's say 2652. The first key level is really going to be 2500s if we can reclaim the 2500 block. Now down below, we have a little bit more liquidity, which sits right around like 2143 down to 2077. That's what I was mentioning before. Like the shoulder can still be formed even if we wicked into those levels. All right. No, that wicked lower. I must have wicked lower in the late evening. Let me check that out real quick. When did that occur? That was 1:30 in the morning. That was last night. Okay, so I did see that. So I did write that one. Okay, so essentially wave 1 would be here. So let's look at this as where I could have potential add backs. Yeah, I think I have a shaved head that sits right over here. Or shaved bottom, excuse me. I have a fair value gap that sits right inside the zone and a shaved bottom here. This one cleared it right over here in this zone. So I revisit to this area right over here inside this zone. I don't have a shaved bottom that sits here, but I do have a shaved bottom that sits over here. That all becomes free game in the sense of or price action wants to come and revisit too. Excuse me. I'm looking at some subwaves here. Good morning, Shine. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, look at something like that for us to occur. Okay, if I'm still lagging on your guys' side, or if you guys are still getting a lag, just let me know and I'll go ahead and restart the stream for us. Yeah, look at these shaved heads. That's from a 55-minute. I don't know where, so I'm trying to identify if it's going to be this zone here in this area. From a weekly, we do have a shaved head, so let's go to that weekly real quick. So we know where that's at. That sits right over here inside this area. So I could get a wave one that clears this imbalance and then decides to come right back down again. Again, I'm not looking for shorts when it comes to that. I wouldn't blame you if you did decide to short that, saying, hey, you know what, I'd rather be safe than sorry. I'm going to open up a head short inside that area. Got a 9 that's brewing here. So I'm going to see where this 9 finishes off at, see if I can get a retracement back into these levels. I really want to see that imbalance get cleared on the weekly, so I'm going to mark that off for us. That sits right here for right now, 2404. Let's make sure we can see that on the minutes. Inside that area. Okay. That's what we're going to work with right now. So I'll look for a hedge short here inside this area. Right inside that zone. So where this 9 is going to finish at, I'm going to look for potential short opportunities on that. Just a hedge short so I can get back into this level. I'm long from these zones right over here. But I could see a retracement coming back down, 76% somewhere inside that level. All right, it's a good push up. I just need more shorts to start aping in for us to get an up thrust. So if you see an up thrust, that's because there's a lot of shorts that are entering here in this area. I want to build on this 9 that sits right over here. Possibly the next candle that gets us right into this area. That's what I would look for a hedge. Quick heads up, if you guys are wanting to trade with me, we are looking to establish copy trade down the road. This is going to be the referral link where you can increase your VIP status. All you have to do is just obviously register, make positive 150 plus. Inside the Discord, you'll have VIP access where you'll have access to free education content, videos, things of that nature, to strategies that I've established and that I talk about quite often inside these streams. Be sure there's going to be a form if you're inside the Discord, to complete the form where it asks you for your UID. This way I can make sure that your VIP status is escalated. And if it's not escalated, always feel free to reach out to me. We have direct access to Byte2Nix through the partnership, so I can make sure that your VIP status is increased. And if you're tuning in live for the very first time, Discord is there as well too. Discord is open, Discord is free. I think we got a good, I think this looks good for getting into a wave one and then riding it down to these levels. I mean, it could come flat. It can come down to 0.5 inside this area, but there's an imbalance on a 5-minute that sits right inside this zone. You know, kind of very similar to what we had right over here. We had a thrust down, then a bullish candle that came up, but then we had that wick down below that cleared that imbalance and created a new low for us. So I'm looking for something similar on the 5-minute as we get into this area right over here. Coupled with that, we also do have a fair value gap that sits right over here inside this area too on a 5-minute. So just a heads up on that. The $100 giveaway is going to be announced on Wednesday. Will be on Wednesday, so all the entries have closed. For those individuals that are subscribed to the channel, they've reposted and commented their handle for YouTube inside there, so be on the lookout for that on Wednesday. I'll try to take care of that first thing in the morning for us, so that way we can get the winner knocked out, get them taken care of, and we can continue into the stream. And my leverage changed. I don't know how my leverage changed, but it did. So I got the stream schedule essentially this week, or at least going forward. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. We're going to be looking for streaming to about 1:30 or so, starting at 9:30. A little bit later this morning because our mentorship class went a little bit over, and then honestly, I was running into some issues with OBS as far as getting the stream going, so I actually had to go directly through YouTube in order to get it to work. But nevertheless, we're going to be running until about 1:30, so that kind of gives us more focused time instead of just sitting here and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Mind you, if there's going to be moves, I'm going to be inside Discord explaining what those moves look like for us. So you guys will always have constant contact in the sense of what is Saint thinking, what's the next move for Ethereum or River or any one of those coins that we're looking at all together. What's up, Daniel? Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Glad that you're here. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 9 a.m., 9:30 to about 1:30. Then Thursdays and Fridays we'll start later on in the day, roughly around like 11:30, maybe 12 o'clock, and then we'll run those until about 4:30. As I mentioned before, we're going to be looking into copy trading down the road. Make it a little bit easier for you guys. I posted a link inside the chat so you guys have an idea as far as where I'll be trading at for copy trade. So just heads up on that. Let me grab some water real quick. Be right with you. We got about 40 minutes left on this 9 to finish printing. So really looking at this 9, thinking if it can mature somewhere around like 2409 inside that area, inside that benchmark. We had some imbalance that sat in this area. We obviously cleared it. So coming back and revisiting this area right over here, it's kind of what I'm looking at. My long would love for it to go higher, don't get me wrong. My long would love for it to go higher. But their overall thesis is, right now for me, is if we're inside of this head and shoulders, and if the butterfly pattern. So I have a couple bullish setups for this, for Ethereum, to go to certain levels. Let's take a peek at River. Let's see what's going on with River. River looks decent. River looks decent. Strong buy signals, lots of loss of momentum on the DI negative, loss of strength on the ADX, and look at that money flow. Good gosh, 0.69. That's got to be an all-time low for it. Yeah, that's an all-time low for money flow. So this finishes off like a shooting star. It is towards the bottom of a trend, but we do have a small up thrust. So something to be paying attention to. It could give you just short-term reversal. Doesn't necessarily mean that it reverses the entire move. If it does decide to reverse the entire move and we get a new low that's beyond 2157, then I'm looking inside of the 2089, 2060 levels. I would like to see those levels maintain themselves. But if it drops further down from there, the next level is going to be somewhere around like 1800s. I had 2250, 2227 inside that area for a fib level on the monthly. We obviously broke through that, but these essentially are wicks, right? So those were liquidity pushes outside of those technical levels. But we've climbed back above those and maintained above those. Excuse me. I've taken a little bit of profit off of the Ethereum long, just enough so that way when I come back and revisit those areas, I can have add backs. I can add that profit back into the position. What's going on? What's up, Monik? Monkey, excuse me. My bad. What's up, City? Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Glad you guys are here. So this is more of a neutral area for us. One thing that we can actually look at here real quick for Ethereum, let's just go over to a 5-minute and let's look at where New York cash market opened up. I believe it was right here. Yeah, so it's right here. So we'll most likely come back to this area right over here, test that area. And we're going to color coordinate that. We're just going to turn that red. So now we know this is New York open. This is part of that 5-minute strategy that I've shared with you guys before in the past. You see, notice that brings us to a 0.382 level inside that zone. So if we get a flat wave 2, which is not common, but not out of the question, then we'll have a sharp wave 4. We've seen that once before. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, on River and ETH. That's what's up. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. You know, I was posting this inside the corner. You know, one thing when you're looking at new week opens or new month opens for that matter, we usually see the opposite occur down the road. So like obviously February on a Sunday, we dumped pretty aggressively. Now as we transition towards the later part of the week, it creates this opportunity where we can go in the opposite direction and reverse that move. Now reversing that move, you know, quote unquote reversing that move would put us somewhere around like 2409. Yes, the move is reversed. We're still inside of that fair value gap inside that area. We could very well tap into 2409 and then have a retracement beyond the 2157. That is very possible. Right? We'd wait for those confirmations to see if we do have a subwave for a wave 2 inside of the 55-minute. So, you know, wave 2 levels are what you see on your chart here. It's this 0.32 level all the way down to here. So these are essentially going to be flat levels for us, and these are going to be sharp levels for us. I was looking at hype this morning with one of my students, and it's pretty wild. I think I had hype. Yeah, I was marking it off with them because this was going to be a dangerous area. I was like, well, if you're going to short this, you know, look at scalps because it's going to try to push through a little bit higher. And I think I was looking at this from a 5-minute perspective. Yeah, see, it wicked all the way up to 33. I think hype is inside of a wave 3. We just don't know it yet. I mean, I have lower targets in the event that wave 2 wasn't done, but it did bounce off of a 0.76 fib level, which essentially is sharp for wave 2. So just be careful on hype, especially if you're shorting that. Sheesh. Bitcoin took that. What's over here? Ah, okay. Yeah, pretty significant area over here for Bitcoin. It tapped into last year, April's demand area. It needs to hold that level. If not, I mean, you're coming to 68s with no problem. Like, no problem. Dust has an imbalance that sits here. Where's Rose? You know what? That's one thing I wanted to check on Rose. See where we are with Rose. Yeah, Rose. Rose should come back down to this level to 12 at some point. We got what appears to be like a double top inside the zone. I didn't short Rose or anything like that. I was just waiting for Rose to get back into these areas before I can look into, you know, opportunities for us. All right, I want to see what ETH is going to do here. Got 31 minutes left inside of this session. Yeah, I think vast majority of people on, you know, crypto Twitter were gunning for 1800, and I could see the 1800. I don't disagree with them, but you know, the market has a funny way of of giving us something different. What do we see? We got liquidations. I'm looking at liquidations right now. $486 million in the last hour. 40 million got taken on shorts. People that are still aping in on shorts. The last 12 hours, 179 million. In the last 24 hours, 486 million has been liquidated on longs. We got these little liquidity pockets that are developing. I'm going to look at an 8-hour real quick for us. That's interesting. Why did they do that? There you go. Now it's transposing the right way. Yeah, we've collected a good chunk of that liquidity on the lower time frames here. Not lower per se, just 8-hour. Let me share that with you so you guys see what I'm looking at. So, I mean, we've pretty much cleared all of this. I mean, the real liquidity sits inside these areas to the upside. If I go higher time frame, let's say like, let's just go to a daily. You know, next real level is right over here. I think that's what a lot of people are targeting. You still have this fair value gap that sits inside this zone. So that's just higher time frame. But I think we can maintain this, right? I think we can get an inverse head and shoulders off of this. We're still like in a confirmation for that right shoulder to start developing. So we're really looking for like a V-shaped recovery for this. So let's go over this. All right, we're really looking for a V-shape, very similar to what we saw over here, similar to what we see over here. We're looking for that V-shape. How far I'm looking at this level right over here for wave one. I'll open up that to a single screen so you can see what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this area right over here. Let's say like 2409 in that area. Because essentially we have, from the weekly, we have a shaved head that sits inside that zone. So I'm looking to build some shorts inside that area. I've already started building something small inside that zone. Excuse me. Where that wick was, where that 9 was. So inside these areas.